Good evening and welcome to A Rude Awakening, episode 4. And tonight we're talking about attachment and detachment dramas in romantic relationships, or what we call in the course community special love hate relationships. I'll just start off with, again, a disclaimer: PG-21. If language offends you, it means that you have a sexual issue with yourself. But since it still offends you, then switch off right fucking now. Don't watch the whole thing and then write some stupid comment down below, because I've offended your sense of language. If I've offended your sense of language, you still believe you're a body and language is real. Switch off now. In other words, fuck off now. Okay? Don't write stupid letters to me. I'm not interested. Don't give a flying fuck what you think about my language. Do you get that? Cool. I am not a psychotherapist. I'm a human behavioral strategist. I have studied psychology with relation to helping organizations and people in organizations self-realize and bind interdependence, unity awareness, so that they can become sustainable and therefore feed their families, grow the sustainability of the company, create employment. Because there's no point in trying to feed a man with 5 loaves and 6,000 fish if he's starving, and no point in teaching him how to fish while he's starving. So ultimately, all of this is to bring about a deeper understanding so that we can live in conscious abundance. This talk is about understanding the dualistic mechanics of special love relationships or romantic relationships. What I'm sharing with you tonight is dualistic, with the purpose of bringing you into the awareness on how to heal through the non-dual understanding, transcendence. This does not replace therapy. It's here to provide an understanding of the nature of our romantic relationships and why they are designed to fail. Or, if you really are willing, turn inwards and offer it to the Holy Spirit so that He can bring about an understanding. It'll bring you to an understanding, the peace of God that transcends understanding into the knowing of thyself as that which is what we have named Christ consciousness or Christ awareness. If you are depressed, especially after a breakup or long periods of loneliness, please get professional help. And if you cannot afford professional help, seek out a friend or two and call for help. Suicide is not an option. You'll be back and you'll have to do it all over again. What I'm about to share with you comes from 30 years of my own research. So there's a bias, of course, based on my own personal experience. And it's my research into what I've wanted to know since I was 9 years old, which is, what am I? Why am I here? What is the true nature of all of this? Why is this still taking place? In other words, the nature of true and absolute reality. And I went the long way around, the long way around, 16 billion years, long way around. And in this lifetime, I really have gone through many a different school of thought, until I started to zero in on the non-dual schools of thought, Tao Te Ching, the Advaita Vedanta, the Upanishads, and eventually A Course in Miracles would put the whole picture together. And it really starts to bring us into be thyself knowingly, which is really understanding the dynamics of human behavioral psychology, ego dynamics, and then brings us into the awareness of awareness itself. Most of what you're about to hear and read today is, besides my few recommendations, comes from various research documents. I'm not going to sit and spew forth opinion unless I can back it up with documents and research. And there is so much written in the world of behavioral psychology in the last 120 years, but yet it's still in its infancy. We're discovering new ways of looking at self every single day. Don't shoot the messenger. This one shoots back. So tonight specifically, we're looking at attachment dramas. So imagine one being fractured into 8 billion fractured selves on this planet alone, 9 septillion throughout the universe. Each fractured being is a thought form, a point of view in the dreamer's mind. Each thought form, point of view is then taken and projected itself into physical form, thought in form, to be informed about what it is. And it was originally fractured in order to keep itself asleep and look for myriads of ways to usurp and prove to God we could usurp his power. But somewhere through this dreaming sequence, the voice for God called us to return, and certain thought forms or thoughts in form or points of views answered the call and returned to pure primordial awareness, Christ consciousness, or awareness is a better word. Um, Throughout the process, we are trying to know self. We are trying to remember self through experience. So we only remember what we are through the experience of what we're not. And one way we do this is by experiencing an interdependency with our fractured selves, mirrors, our mirror selves, others, in other words, other people. But no sooner do we connect and our unforgiven memory comes back, our fear, sin, and guilt comes back, and the emptiness returns, and we get into conflict. So the romantic period ends after a little while, and before we know it, we have the conflict in relationships. And millions of books have been written about how to heal relationships. The reason relationships fail is they are designed to fail so that we can turn inwards. But at some stage, you've turned inwards. You've returned in your return journey back to awareness. You become consciously aware, bridge consciousness of what you are. From this stage, you've got to move yourself back into the dream and embrace all of it. And it's from this stage that you are now ready to understand your past mistakes and how you did them and why you did them. And tonight I'll explain that experience through what I call attachment dramas, or what has been called attachment dramas, written in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So the four attachment dramas are dismissive. The first one is the dismissive avoidant drama. That drama runs with the fear of losing independence. Then you've got the anxious attachment drama, and that person fears loss, fears being rejected, fears being abandoned. And then you have the fearful and or chaotic avoidant drama. Sometimes they split those two, but for the sake of tonight and simplicity, they are similar, and so I've grouped them into one. And they fear, it's the combination of the above two. They fear loss, rejection, abandonment, and losing their independence, and they zigzag between the two. And then finally, you have the secure attachment drama, and these are healthy commitments. These are relationships that are healed, self that is healed. And as I'll explain later on, the secure attachment drama won't put up with either of those three above. So the first three attachment styles or detachment styles in some cases, as in the dismissive, are based on our beliefs about our sense of unworthiness, because we all carry that void, that emptiness inside, which is filled with question marks. And it's all to do with unworthiness, because subconsciously, whether we're aware of it or not, we believe that we are guilty for having sinned against God. And therefore, we subconsciously live in fear of being punished by his vengeful ways, not aware of that because it's hidden in our secret dream, where imagine we're going to be hurt or punished by other bodies. And since our lives are horror stories of suffering, we will automatically blame our fractured selves, not recognizing our fractured selves are ourself in a sleep, in a dream. Just quickly, in terms of the seesaw, like last week I explained to you, bully and victim on the one side, and then aloof and interrogator. In a similar way, you have in the seesaw of relationships, on the one side, you have on the extreme fearful avoidant, a little less extreme dismissive avoidant. And on the other side, you've only got one drama, the anxious attachment. Down the center, you have a secure attachment. Secure attachments are healthy interdependent relationships, healthy with commitment, healthy with connection. And as you can see on the two spectrums, the fearful avoidant, fear of loss and rejection, abandonment, and losing their independence, Whereas the dismissive avoidant really is just fear of losing their independence mostly. They don't trust anyone. On the other side, you've got the clingers. They want to attach, and they chase. They're the control freaks. They're the interrogators. And their greatest loss is fear of loss and rejection and abandonment. So you can imagine on the one side, the anxious attachments are drawn to either dismissive avoidance or fearful avoidance, depending on how far on the left-hand side of the seesaw the anxious attachment seems to be. All of this based on our early childhood, formative year dramas and traumas. When you hit the center, you move into a healed state. You really move direct. It's the alignment with self, and it's the preparation for the two by two shall enter the ark of the covenant. And it's not necessarily two people, although it can be reflected that way, but it's really when both masculine and feminine polarity within ourselves join the yin yang, which was the first movement of separation. It was first just simple one circle of light. As it split, you've got the yin yang, right minded, wrong mindedness, the masculine, feminine spinning around each other, trying to chase each other's tails like the Ouroboros, the snake had swallowed his tail. And once you're there without the need for attachment or detachment, completion is known. And the minute you resonate in a state of healed completion, you attract like-minded awareness because the law of reciprocity is always at play, even in the dream. So now I want to go into the characteristics, and we'll start off with the dismissive avoidant drama. It's pretty self-explanatory in the name, dismissive avoidant. So they dismiss and they avoid. Dismissive avoidance mistake independence for strength, and especially in the feminine movement, where the feminine, because it's or the the matriarchy as a whole has been so suppressed and oppressed by the patriarchy in millennia that as of the 50s, 60s, 70s, the matriarchy started to fight back. The pendulum started to swing back, trying to find the center. What has happened is we've now got the angry matriarchy, and they are now fighting the patriarchy instead of realizing, hang a second, there's a way to transcend this. And the patriarchy are now feeling threatened. And so they're becoming toxic in their defensiveness instead of realizing we were at fault. The masculine was definitely at fault over the eons in terms of controlling and dominating the feminine. Let's find a middle ground. Let's forgive. Let's understand. Let's transcend. Let's unite. No, now we're at war. And now you've got the one side accusing the other side of toxicity. It's either masculine toxicity, feminine toxicity, and everybody's angry with each other. And, and there's this understanding that I love you, but I don't need you. Yeah, but while you're dreaming and while you're in duality, we most definitely still need each other. Don't you ever think you don't need anyone? You can't not need them because you need all of yourselves to unite in one indivisible self. Need from a state of love is there's no need in love. It's a want to express itself. So they really the dismissive avoidant drama mistakes independence for strength, interdependence for codependency. They do not understand that you can be interdependent without being needy. They have a deep inner world filled with fantasies of the perfect romantic relationship on their own terms. You can already see that dismissive avoidant drama starts to tend towards leaning towards the feminine, although that's not all cases. It's just generalization. Don't shoot the messenger. Statistics. Their idealistic partners is godlike in characteristics, and they will abandon their current partner in a relationship if that current partner doesn't live up to their perfect fantasy. Their fantasies can be deactivated instantly if they feel they're losing their independence or fear of anyone getting too close to them because they feel that if I get too close, my flaws will be exposed. I'm really not worthy of being loved. I'm just not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not feminine enough. I'm not masculine enough, or whatever the case should be. And if I spend too much time with you, I'm going to be rejected. And often these breakups happen around holiday times, especially when you're going to spend a lot of time in proximity. These are people that break up with you just before Christmas type thing. They all have a phantom ex, a past ex who they cannot stop thinking about, even if they just had a one night stand with them. And they compare with them to everybody. Because they lived in a fantasy. They had the one night fantasy or a 1 week fantasy, and if they had a long-term relationship with that person, they forget about all the brutal things done to them. They only think of the romantic things. And at any given opportunity, if they think they can repair that relationship, they'll dump their current partner and go back and try and fix that one. But the current partner cannot and will never live up to their phantom X. Why? Because it's a fantasy. It's a delusion within the illusion, a dream within a dream within a dream. And so, no matter how terrible the relationship was with their phantom X, they only remember the happy, happy times. They have a very strong sense of self-sufficiency. They hate, absolutely hate relying on others. They absolutely hate it. They have a tendency to avoid any emotional displays, both verbal and emotional. And if they do demonstrate it, it'll be very, very short and intense. And then they'll have to recharge. They'll say things like, I get lost when I'm with you. Why? Because they're losing their sense of self. What does that little sense of self mean? Their egoic identity, which is always grounded with some sort of activity in the world. It can be from very mechanical to very earthly. And so they very often pretend to love the earth and animals and travel and the ocean and the forests, but it's just a false identification with being a body on a planet. They're occasionally supposed to say that they very often self-sabotage. So they have a tendency to have narcissistic-like behavior. What's narcissistic? Self-sabotage with a high criticism of others. So as soon as they find themselves getting close, they cannot help but start to criticize the partner or others, and especially the ones they love most. They are so good at fault finding. They have a reluctance to prioritize romantic relationships. Why? Because it means if I give you my heart, then I'm completely codependent on you. You can start to see a pattern where this is coming from. Thus, they fear that placing too much importance on any one person or any one romantic relationship will overwhelm them, and they will lose themselves and their independence in a relationship, and God forbid. They've definitely been hurt before, either in a prior relationship and most definitely somehow in their home relationship when they were growing up. But if you ask them about their childhood, they'll often romanticize it and tell you how perfect it was. And even though their father may have been completely emotionally disconnected and quiet and distant, and their mother may have been completely controlling and still is, they will romanticize it and tell you how much they love their parents, even though secretly they really couldn't stand them in many cases. So they have deliberate actions to create distance. They'll flirt with other people. They'll always keep an option open. And if you try and communicate with them, these are the people that if you text them, they text back after a day or two. But woe if you don't reply immediately to their text, because then immediately there's definitely something wrong with you, and it's always you. They will never, almost never, take responsibility for being the cause of the conflict. They're always overly worried about being controlled, and they believe that commitment leads to being controlled. They see commitment as control, and thus will limit their independence. So they avoid it at all costs if possible, even though they have their fantasies about finding the perfect romantic love, especially if they get into the non-dual, then they want the perfect mighty companion. But man, the list of requirements is as long as the world is long, the world is round. Anyway, in their formative years, so let's understand what happened. How did this happen? All comes back to formative years, which means it comes back to the moment you became a thought form in the dreamer's mind. So it was a thought form, a point of view that the dreamer had about itself, what it could be. And so, how do I remember what I am? Or more importantly, originally, how do I forget what I am and blame someone else for being separated, fractured, alone, filled with remorse, guilt, loneliness, fear of getting punished, fear of being, abandoned again, and wondering why whatever created you has abandoned you, and then creating all this fearful expectation that you're going to get punished. We then project into form, and with that comes the programming. And so the minute we project into form, we look for ways to replay it, to replay the moment of separation, Big Bang, when we forgot what we were, fell asleep, and split off in our dream from our source. In other words, in our dream, in our awareness from what we are. So in their formative years as a body-mind projection, a human being, they chose relationships, parents that made them feel worthless, made them feel ignored or attacked or just dismissed. And so hiding their feelings, their emotions, and themselves was their safety. And as a consequence, they became aloof, distant, and avoided conflict at any cost. And how do you avoid conflict? You avoid connection, you avoid relationships. So in their formative years, because they were scolded for showing emotions or voicing their opinion or wanting to, even if they were just being playful, they were told to keep quiet, keep it down. We don't talk about emotions at the dinner table. We don't talk about relationships at the dinner table. Um, Also, what may have happened to them, they may have had a death of a very close family member to whom they were very close, and that separation anxiety made them shut down in case of being hurt again. Or they lost an animal, a pet, a cat, a dog. They'll never get a cat or dog again, you know. Keep it at a distance. They love cats and dogs, but we don't want our own because what if the dog dies? You know, I can't bear to think of what happens 15 years from now when the cat or dog dies. So let's not, rather not get another one. So that they deny themselves of the joyous expression and the joyous celebration and taking care of something just in case it dies. Well, everything dies in the dream. Okay. But nothing was ever born and nothing really dies in truth. But so they'll never really figure that out. So death is overwhelming for them in most regards, or they'll feel but they'll look like they're controlling it, and very often can look like they feel nothing, especially if they have narcissistic tendencies. So children who experienced or felt rejected in early childhood may develop a dismissive attachment style and come to believe that those around them will disappoint and abandon them. And it's a firm belief in their mind. So dad was, even they may have had the most loving mother that was always there, but dad was absent, or dad was the housekeeper and mom was avoidant. So there was one or both that, even if they had the most loving one parent, the fact that the other one avoided them was enough, you know. And they very often fantasize about that parent in terms of that parent was perfect to the point that they criticize the parent that stayed behind and took care of them. You'll see them. These are the kids that are constantly criticizing their mothers and their fathers. Let's say it's a stay-at-home mom looking after the kid and the father's never there. They'll blame the mother for everything, even though the mother's made a full-time commitment for them, to them. And so it's all about rejection, abandonment, denial, or just plainly just being ignored. And rejection can always and can often and does often include very early childhood abandonment. So any child that's been orphaned and at a young age or at a young age realizes they've been orphaned, they always have that something's missing. There's a connection missing. And you know, another thing is the inconsistent parenting. So parents are around and then gone for a while. Parents are around, gone for a while. Or very often also being harshly criticized for never being good enough if they've had overly perfectionist parents that are constantly telling them, no matter what you've done, when I was your age, did it better. You think you've got it tough now? I had it much tougher when I was better. Tough is tough, no matter whether it seemed to be worse or not. What anyone's going through right now is as tough as they've ever been. Don't ever compare your toughness with them. It's not a contest. But people do that to children all the time, still. So now let's look at the anxious attachment drama. So dismissive was the one side. We're now looking at the other side of the seesaw, the anxious attachment drama. Look at the characteristics. The anxious attachment drama person feels that they must communicate everything all the time because their intrusive and volatile parents either overshared or over-interrogated them and friends. And you'll see that these were the ones that had parents that were either hypercritical, they interrogated their parents, asked them lots of questions only to find fault, or were volatile one day and just normal the next. So this poor child had no idea and so was getting punished. And there was kind of parents that played psychological games. Tell me about your day. I know what you've done. It was you. I know it was you. And then before you know it, they're spilling their guts. They derive their self-worth by helping others. And they're only okay when they believe or feel their partners are okay. So as a child, they only felt okay if they saw their parents were okay. And because their parents were never okay, they were never okay. Um, and very often you'll see that they come from parents that guilted them as a child. You know, it's like the single mother, your father left me, I would have still been with your father if I didn't have you as a baby. You were an unplanned child. I was just having a romantic weekend with my boyfriend and then I fell pregnant. It's your fault. They blame the child. And that's why he left. He wasn't ready for the commitment. It's your fault. I'd be happy and rich if you hadn't been born. Instead of perhaps I should have used the condom. You know. So they have a tendency to people please. The anxious attachment style, as you can imagine, they attach and they chase. And especially if they're a female, they're going to get burnt because if you chase the masculine and too soon and try and overwhelm him, he's going to pull away from you. And if you offer sex too early, and you see that in a lot of recent, you'll see a lot of social media saying you must just put out there and test the field and have as much. Now the female, it's okay, go out there and have as much sex as you want to with as many partners as you want to. Well, besides the disease opportunities that you're now presenting yourself for, you're giving a part of yourself away every time you sleep with someone who's going to just dump you the next day. And if you sleep with a guy, and I've said this a million times too much, no matter how modernized we are in the world, old values are still prevalent. So if you sleep with a guy because you want to give him the sexiest, naughtiest sex you can, because you really want to turn him on, and he hasn't hooked into you, you go into that little black book of the girls I have fun with, and he keeps hunting for the perfect partner that makes him chase, because men need to chase. And if you chase a sigma male, and you must learn about sigma males, and I will talk about them in a forthcoming episode. You chase the sigma male, he'll disconnect from you immediately because a sigma male is about equality. It's not about game playing. And do not try and overwhelm him too soon. You'll chase him away. Don't overwhelm him. Let him make the contact, show your interest, and wait for the communication to happen. No game playing. So they tend to people please. They want to over please. They want to please their parents. Why? They were getting criticized all the time. And because they believe they're unwanted, unloved, unvalued, unvalidated, they need the validation. So they want to show all in order to get validation. And why? Because deep within themselves, there's a deep sense of unworthiness because they've been rejected, abandoned. And so self esteem is almost non existent. And the only way they gain self esteem is by the recognition and validation from others. They don't look in the mirror. They don't see how fantastic and how beautiful we all are. So, they fear their partners dismissing them. And so what do? They attach and try and control, and then they experience exactly what they wish didn't happen. And so abandonment and rejection and criticism is their greatest fear. And they live with this perpetual anxiety, anxiousness of getting criticized and rejected. These people are the ones that develop very high intuition, very high empathy. And so they tend to hide or control their true emotions, but they feel everything, especially any form of rejection. Someone can look across the room and be frowning, and they immediately think someone's rejecting them. They have a high need for transparency, hence a lot of questions. They want to know everything about the other person. And they need to define clear boundaries. They just meet you and they want to start defining clear boundaries and rules of engagement and commitment and communication. So they tend to over communicate. Just they literally just don't shut up. And because they've never had any clear boundaries with their parents in the formative years, they now need to define it right up front, and they can be incredibly overwhelming. And then they're surprised that people act aggressively or push them away, and they immediately equate it to the volatility of their parents when they were younger, not realizing that you've just overwhelmed someone. Um, these these people also tend to be high. They have a high ability at almost impossible problem solving. So they have an ability to see through things. Hence their intuition. They're highly alert. They notice everything. And so they can put things together. They can put puzzles together. They can see patterns. They turn into great strategists. But they really, once they've attached, they don't let go to the point that they'll get destroyed in the process. And so, because they're high problem solvers, they become control freaks. They want to fix everybody. They want to become spiritual healers. They want to become yoga teachers, massage therapists, sacrocranial this, yoga and kundalini. And it's all about fixing others in order to be validated for being whatever they are, spiritual or awake or enlightened. If they're religious, then they have read the Bible and they want to become ministers and helpers in the church and control everybody and show everybody how important they need the validation. They need to be on the stage, even if they're super shy. And they need to be validated the whole time. God forbid you don't validate them, you know. So these are often the ones that requote the guru, chase the guru, but woe if the guru doesn't give them attention, you know. And then they immediately go back into bad mouthing, or they're the ones that go and blame any male who, if they're a female, they'll blame the male for giving them attention. Then because he's really not interested, he was just being friendly, they'll then accuse him of sexual harassment or something stupid. They do that. They go to that extreme again to get the validation. I am generalizing. See the whole big picture here. And they have a tendency to give a lot more than they receive because they don't believe they're worthy. These are the people that say it's better to give than to receive. And then they complain because they haven't received anything. And you give them a compliment and they tell you what's wrong with them. You said, "No, that your head looks nice." "Oh, but my bum's too big." You know, it's immediately they'll find something wrong with themselves. And then when you give them a compliment, they don't know what to do with it, yet they love it deeply inside. But they can always find fault anyway with a compliment. So they're it's like the opposite to the secure attachment people, completely. Well, all three of them are. So instead of seeking support, interdependence, and containment, these anxious attachment dramas seek constant validation. Someone who's healed shares of themselves, offers of themselves. A anxious attachment drama only shares of themselves in order to receive. But because they give mixed signals, they don't know how to receive, and someone gives something back to them, they reject it. They have a hypervigilance to their external world and often to their internal world, but very often the internal world is fantasized and the external world is seen as cruel. And why do they do that? So they often learn, and these are the ones that go and do all the self-help courses. They learn to control their fight or flight impulses. And so they do the self-help courses to learn how to manage it, but their inner world is on fire, even though they can seem to smile and frown in the right circumstances. And these are the people, I mean, these are the ones that write the beautiful songs that I can't live if living is without you. You know, so they suffer a permanent trauma of rejection because it's impossible to get everybody to like you. And so they have an over tendency to overanalyze and deliberate. They can never make a decision because they're trying to please everybody. And you know what happens when you try and please two different people, types of people. It's impossible. So let's look at their formative years. In their formative years, they were abandoned, completely abandoned or ignored by their parents. These are children that were lonely. In their formative years, they very often took on the role of parent, you know, in Oedipus complex with the mother, or, you know, the father figure in the home for a young boy, or the mother figure in the home for a young girl who was cooking from the age of 6 because the mother was always drunk and passed out. So they become the caretakers of their parents, both well-being in terms of physicality and mental well-being. They're constantly trying to appease their parents because their parents were either addicts or their parents definitely addicts, but either addicted to work or substances or alcohol or both. And so they constantly try to appease their parents to no avail. Um, you know, they really only seem to relax when the parents go to sleep. And they were never sure what they were going to get from parents because one day the parent be supportive, helpful, attentive, and the next day the parent would be drunk or completely avoidant. Or they had very, very overprotective parents that try and control every aspect of their lives. And very often you have that with the single mother or the single father situation where the father or mother tries to become buddies with the child. My daughter's my best friend, my son's my best friend. And you cannot be parent and best friend. Of course, you need to get along, of course, and enjoy doing things together. But at some stage, 13, 14, 15, 16, that kid needs to rebel against you, bounce up against your values and find their own way, or else they become complete drips and complete washouts and never actually look after themselves. And at some stage, parents are going to die, and then that kid's buggered. Um, and so, as I said, sometimes an overprotective, overbearing parent who overshared about all that, you know, imagine the single parent who overshares about their sexual exploits and at a very young age, and the child starts to get very explicit understanding of intimate relationships at an age that they shouldn't be. And, you know, believe it or not, children often get embarrassed by their parents' behavior. So you can imagine, you know, how many mommies and daddies you see in your house because your parent is never alone and doesn't like being alone and is constantly inviting other people over. And the anxious attachment drama has no idea where to attach to. And so it wants to control everything. Their parents, if they had two parents, their parents were always fighting. And so what they had a tendency to do is protect their weaker ones, the younger siblings. Even if they were the younger child, if they had that ability and that sense of protection, they would have been the one that protected the rest of the kids. Um, and so they were constantly, they had this constant anxiety because they were expecting an attack, a rejection, a verbal attack, a physical attack at any given time. Or very often also in the case of that one love forlorn parent who had a one-night stand and you were produced and fantasizes about the Phantom X, um, as you can imagine, dismissive avoidant parents, and um, and they just constantly go from one relationship to the next, and the child just has no idea how to anchor or where to peg. And very often, the parents are bringing about abusive relationships into the home, and the child's being challenged with value systems. Um, or you had that one parent that's constantly bad mouthing the parent that left, constantly bad mouthing the parent that left. And if the child should behave in any way similar or in any similar pattern to the parent who left, that child gets immediately attacked for being like the parent that left, and so that child can never ever do any good. And very often, those parents are going from one failed relationship to the next, and that kid has no idea how to peg and how to connect, and is too afraid to connect, and yet anxious to connect. And so you can see the formative patterns. We then look at the fearful, or what's often called the chaotic avoidant. So chaotic avoidant is similar to the fearful. It just imagine fear and total chaos. So fearful or chaotic avoidant attachment drama. Let's look at the characteristics. We're looking at the extreme side now of the seesaw, the far right-hand side. This is a combination of the above two. So it's a combination of fearful avoidant, of dismissive avoidant and chaotic or serious attachment drama, anxious attachment. And this person is the seesaw. Very often you see this in the spiritual community. These are the people that listen to the spiritual teacher, gain a lot of understanding, then find the next one, gain a lot of understanding, and then start comparing the two. And so instead of transcending upwards, and we'll talk more about that next week, they zigzag between several teachers, comparing each teachers and asking the different teachers their opinion about the other teacher or what the other teacher said. So they never make up their own minds. They never have the direct path, so they never transcend. In their formative years, they had parents that were highly inconsistent. So you can see the inconsistency is there, unreliable parents. Very often in the chaotic avoidant attachment style, they had the drug users, the alcoholic parents. And so they really, from a fundamental state of inner self-awareness, they question the reliability and safety of closeness because they were often punished for bringing forward their needs or their wants or just being themselves. And so they pendulate between, like a pendulum, between seeking closeness and pushing away. The minute someone gets close, they push away. The minute someone pushes away, they try and drag them closer. They have a very heightened sense of, and super heightened sense of sensitivity of emotions. And even to the point that they go borderline bipolar. And very often they can become highly unpredictable, highly erratic, just like the parents they may have had. So this is the mirror, where they start to mirror their parent behavior. So thus they're generally sort of the type of people that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, always looking for the escape, always looking for the door, always looking for a way to get out. And they have the reasons and the excuses to validate any breakup or any running away or any control mechanism. Um, they're hyper vigilant, but they're always expecting things to go wrong. The glass, never mind half full, glass is almost empty even when there's a full glass there. They're always looking out for reasons to mistrust. They gather information. They're the kinds of people that do research to make sure they Facebook, what's the word when they snoop, they want information, they want to know, can you be trusted, they look for any reason not to. They'll find the smallest reason to blow up and run away or attack or criticize. So they can be very highly strung, very high nervous people, and they have a tendency to overwhelm others they're like the victims, energy thieves. They have a tendency to self-sabotage, a high tendency to self-sabotage a relationship, and they often break up with you just in case you break up with them, because you just showed one sign, even though it could be completely unrelated to the relationship. You did something their ex did, and you read a newspaper on a park bench, and then ex read a newspaper on the park bench before they broke up with them, and now you're going to break up with them, so they'll walk up to you and just break up with you, and you have no idea what's going on. They have an exaggerated emotional intensity, which they cannot regulate at all. And really, you'll see that the inner mirror and the outer mirror are very similar. Their inner world and outer world are just as chaotic, just as broken. And the only time they go quiet is if they have no idea how to express their emotions. Overanalyze everything, okay, and have a tendency to deliberate over everything, ask millions of questions, never come to a conclusion, and they therefore appear highly decisive or very slow because they just hate to make a decision. And as soon as they start concluding on something, they'll find another reason to keep investigating. They make great researchers, though. So let's go a little deeper into in terms of the fearful chaotic. What happened in their formative years? So they often experience childhood trauma. So remember the chaos, the fearful chaos, childhood trauma, sexual, physical, psychological, or all three. Or in their formative years, these are children that grew up in war zones or refugees. So you'll see that with a lot of refugee children become this later on in their adulthood because they're suffering from some form of PTSD. Because their little worldview hasn't developed yet, they just push it away as a fantasy, but it's there in the subconscious. And it just needs one little mirror to come up as they turn 15, 16 and show them the same picture or early 20s, and they just go into full blown PTSD. So they therefore have a tendency to be hyper vigilant, highly anxious, waiting, fight or flight, ready to run at any given moment. And yet they have a deep desire for closeness and intimacy. But the minute they connect, they want to push away. So they don't mind being punished in intimate relationships, even though they just want to be loved. But as long as they're getting some sort of connection, they'll accept it, even though they really just want a healthy relationship. They very often have had parents with addictions, alcoholics, drug addicts, and people who responded with total inconsistency, couldn't hold a job, sometimes around, sometimes not, sometimes erratic, sometimes loving, and emotionally over loving, and then next minute getting punished. And so they waiting for the other shoe to drop type people. They've also had very emotionally neglective parents, and therefore they had a very high sense of unworthiness because they just not worth being loved, or I just was too stupid. No one loves me because I'm stupid. If you're told you're stupid enough times when you're young, you start to believe it, no matter how intelligent, how emotionally intelligent, how spiritually intelligent you are. Maybe you couldn't do math, and now all of a sudden you're branded stupid, yet you're a great artist or a great musician. And so they start to mistrust themselves based on the global externalized worldview about themselves, and they never develop their own. And even though they may be artistic, they still blame themselves for being stupid. They could be the best musician in the world or best therapist in the world, but they still think they're stupid because they cannot work out pi, you know, PHI, 1.61682, I think. Anyway, what happens? What happens if things go wrong? That's the common language you hear. What happens when things go wrong? What if this goes wrong? What if that doesn't work? What if we run out of petrol? What if an airplane lands on our head? The world's going to end. What if? What if? Never happy. Always blaming the rest of the world, victims of the world. Because of their actions, the children were attacked or punished. They never develop safety patterns. They have no idea how to build inner safety. And so it's either everybody else is to blame or everybody else is going to attack me, and I'm never going to be good enough, and I'm never going to be able to be loved because I have this problem. And they very quickly highlight their own problems too, or completely suppress them and then blame everybody else and project their shit onto them. Thus, they are highly indecisive, struggle to make decisions that could have any long-term effect. Like if it means, they meet someone, they've been courting for 3 months or a year, person starts to talk about the future, they start to run, they start to dismiss it, they start to avoid it, they start to find reasons why things wrong. They'll be happily with you for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, but marriage to them could mean disaster because they saw their parents getting married over and over again. They don't want to do that. So they are fearful of attachment. Okay, I'm going to take a short break here. and just open up for questions, and then we'll continue. So thank you for your questions. Let's continue now, and I'm sure that you have many more questions, and I'm sure I'm going to answer many of them now. If you still have questions, please do send them to me or ask after this in the next section. We're now going to look specifically at the interplay between our fractured selves and our fractured selves. So this is what you're dreaming up in your dream, even though you think you've localized as you, all of it's you. And now let's see how you avoid facing all of your selves, all of your detachment, attachment dramas. So I've spoken of the seesaw, and we can see on the one extreme you've got the fearful avoidant. On the other extreme, you've got the anxious attachment. Anxious attachment people are drawn to dismissive avoidance or fearful avoidance. Very seldomly you'll find fearful avoidance, if at all, and dismissive avoidance getting together, or dismissive and dismissive. They generally find the polar opposite, equal frequency mirror. Why? Because we come through together for quantum entanglement in order so that we can share parts of ourselves, unhealed selves, to bring to the surface to be healed. But while we're still trapped and believing we're victims, we're then projecting outwards and blaming other people for what's gone wrong in the world, victims of the world we see. What we really are trying to do is move to the center point, where you as a healed self, fractured self, have nothing left to forgive and nothing more to desire from anyone. Yet there's this, the only desire that's left is to be thyself knowingly. Remember self, remember the kingdom from which you've never left. And then pour yourself lovingly into the world. Now you may ask yourself, will a secure attachment drama, which is no drama, center point, be attracted to anxious attachments, dismissive avoidance, or fearful avoidance? If you've come through with secure attachment, in other words, the healed healers that come through at a very young age, and that's less than 1% of the population, although some surveys will say 40% of the population are secure attachment. Bullshit. I don't believe that although that's statistically research done in America, for example, I do not believe it. If you had a country with 40% of the people secure attachment, you'd have absolutely no drama. And so secure attachment drama or secure attachment people are healed healers. Um, if they were to get into a relationship with an anxious attachment or dismissive avoidant, it would only be in their young first relationships, because what will happen is these are the sigma males and the sigma females. They don't chase, they don't need validation, they don't need games, and they don't put up with it. And so they would end relationships very quickly if you start playing out your anxious attachment or dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant drama. So let's look at the interplay between these dramas. So obviously it's between the three and not the secure attachment. Generally, we find that the dismissive avoidant, the one that runs away, and the fearful avoidant drama, so dismissive and fearful avoidance, they most often are attracted to the anxious attachment drama. So anxious wants to control, attach, and the dismissive and fearful want to run away, push, pull. From the outside of the relationship, it seems if the anxious attachment drama person, remember the last talk, the interrogator, the clingy, overbearing person, has a tendency to chase the dismissive, avoidant drama person, the aloof, because they want to fix the relationship due to their need for problem solving in order to regain their self-worth and self-esteem, because I have fixed you. The anxious attachment person seeks to formalize the relationship and solidify the consistency of the commitment, whereas the dismissive and fearful avoidant, that's the worst nightmare for them. They're afraid to commit, to anything that could possibly cause hurt or further separation later on. And more importantly, they're so afraid of losing their independence. And it's this push-pull drama, two seesaws, that diverts our attention from going inwards, because we're looking at the problem outside ourselves. And through the practice of direct self-inquiry, we then learn that our fears have no source. I'm afraid of commitment because I believe everybody's going to hurt me. But if I dive into it and I find my childhood formative patterns, I understand why I chose them that way when I projected into form. so that I could get to a point of recognizing there must be a better way. Now that I've seen it's one indivisible fractured parts of myself, I am that which dreams, and I temporarily seem to be the localization of one of my fractured selves. I can now take full responsibility for being the dreamer, full responsibility for having dreamt this up in vengeance, forgive my idea of vengeance, forgive my localization for what appeared to have happened, because nothing really happened at all. Not only am I not just the dreamer, I'm also that which is always awake. And since I cannot both be awake and be the dreamer, one of my parts must be true. And what is true and forever unchanged? The awake self, the Christ self. And so I then bring it into conscious awareness through forgiveness, gratitude for seeing the drama. If I can be grateful for understanding the drama, the healing is instant. It's not just the forgiveness. It's the minute you're grateful for the understanding, the forgiveness is done. And then I can abide, rest as awareness, present moment awareness extends through me. The joyous inflorescence flows through me, the inspired enthusiasm. And then I pour myself into the world and share all of myself with my fractured selves, as I am doing right now. If you wonder why I'm doing this, this is how I share the love I am with the love I recognize as what appears as my fractured selves, one indivisible self. So how do we heal the three attachment dramas? So, Nikki, thank you for the question. Here it is. How do we heal the attachment dramas? We heal through understanding. And what is our fractured selves? What is our dramas? It's our shadow selves. It's our unforgiven triggers or our filters. The filters that we've put between the self and the light of self, the fractured self and the light of awareness, the alignment, the returning to Christ-mindedness. The shadows are obstacles to peace. We forgive our dramas. We understand them. We understand why we became like this. We understand what caused us to become like this by watching the interplay between our parents and the experience we had from them. We now realize I chose this. Why did I choose this? So I could get to a point of desperation where there couldn't see another way out. And eventually I surrendered. And I said, show me a better way. There must be a better way. It's how the Course in Miracles came about, when two people just couldn't work together. One was a fearful avoidant, one was the dismissive avoidant. Okay, so now you realize you're here to heal, not just you as a fractured polarity, a fractured self, a fractured projection of our dreaming mind. You realize as I heal, I lend my light of awareness to the rest of myself. I'm not here to fix anyone. I'm here to allow myself to be healed. Face my shadows, understand them, forgive them, be grateful, and the healing is instant. And I lend my awareness to the rest of myself. And then you get presented with the opportunity. You'll first be presented, ego always speaks first, with another fractured self in the drama so that you can say no thanks. And then you'll be shown, here's the mirror of a healed self. And through that, two by two, mighty companionship, we enter into the arc. And it's got nothing to do with your age. You could be 90 years old and you meet the most wonderful, whatever person, young person, old person, doesn't matter. The mighty companionship is formed. Do not become over anxious before you've learned everything you can from your relationships. If you find yourself trapped in a relationship right now, don't run away. All you're going to do is break up with the current partner and you're just going to replay it with another one in exactly the same way. It's only when your partner is unwilling to walk with you in a mighty companionship, or is physically abusive, mentally abusive, or abusive in any way, that's the only time you end the relationship. But do not end a relationship because things aren't going your way. When the light of awareness flows into your joined mind, the healing takes place. And where two are gathered in my name, if you truly want to be healed in a relationship, and you make a commitment to each other and the Lord God of your shared being, to awaken to self, you really choose to have open-hearted surgery communication. Find a good therapist that will guide you and not take sides, but guide you gently on your way home. You could end up having the most beautiful rest of your life years on this planet with a truly loving, understanding companionship. Doesn't have to be intimate, doesn't have to be sexual. It can be both, and it could just be a deep friendship. Um, and it will change your view on this world because you won't be living in fear. You won't be seeing yourself as a body anymore. You'll recognize spirit, and you'll recognize the interplay between spirit and Holy Spirit as the extension of the love of God we all are. Be aware that the egoic body mind responds to fear, false expectations appearing real in two ways: fight or flight. Which one how have you played? Have you wanted to fight with everybody, blame everybody, or have you blamed yourself and wanted to run away? But more importantly, be aware of how it triggers you. Listen to this over and over again. Listen to it from the beginning, from the first episode, and really start to understand that it's all fair and well that we understand the non-dual, and we want to put on, our holier than thou, and we want to be spiritual. And look how happy I am. If you're not fully at peace within yourself, if you're still worrying, if you still have questions, face your shadow selves. That's what we're doing now. We're now doing the psychology, which the course recommends. And we're starting to understand what is psychology. It's to understand our sociopathy, to understand our psychopathy. We want to understand how have we done this to ourselves, not who's done this to us. Okay, always understand this much. As you move into secure a healed attachment, and you still have those around you, whether they be intimate relationships or not, you give people space, especially the dismissive avoidants that want to run away. You give them space, and you assure the anxious and fearful attachment people that they can be okay together or alone. I love you, but I don't need to control you. You can love me without controlling me, but you need to set healthy boundaries where you agree to how you work together. That you can be just as happy with them or without them. You don't need them in order to be happy. I don't need you to fulfill me. I don't need you to complete me. We're both complete. Do we want to lend our light to one another, or do we want to steal the light from one another? Because ultimately, quantum entanglement is always at play. Every time you bump into a brother, it's an opportunity for a miracle. But if you choose to be in an intimate relationship, have the healthy boundaries. Realize that the anxious attachment person can try and make a secure attachment drama, a secure attachment person start doubting themselves because they're constantly attacking, constantly complaining, constantly. But a truly secure person will eventually just cut it, and end that relationship, because secure attachment people have no need for drama. So if you're looking for the perfect person to come into your life and you're struggling with the drama, the perfect person isn't going to come into your life, because you're only going to get your fractured mirrors coming back at you to show you an external condition of an inner condition, an external, mirror of an internal condition. Remember, no point in trying to clean the mirror. The mirror is just the mirror. You've got to clean the image in here. Start there. Okay, self. Become aware that the dismissive, avoidant drama people, they need to realize that their fantasy world doesn't exist. There's no perfect person out there. Doesn't exist. Not the guru, not the teacher, not the one with millions of followers. Every single fractured identity in this world is struggling with something. And even though you're maybe have reached a secure attachment situation, if you aren't fully awake to self, there's still work to do. And those that are fully awake to self, in other words, recognition of our indivisible shared self, no one's enlightened, the mind's enlightening. But once you recognize what are we, and the fact that we are thoughts in form, projections of our dreaming mind, and then realize we are the dreaming mind. Each and every single one of us is the dreaming mind in space and time, but in eternity, we're the Christ self. Become aware that if you are the anxious attachment person, realize that you don't need others or the world to be okay or the whole world to be healed for you to be okay or healed. Anxious attachment drama people become Course in Miracles teachers. They want to fix everybody, but you see that they themselves aren't healed. You see their anxiousness. You see their anxiety. It's never enough. Trying to capture everything, trying to understand everything, trying to criticize everything, ask lots of questions and never get it. You can tell them the same thing over and over again. How many times do you need to listen to someone to realize I'm dreaming? How many times do you need to recognize you've done this unto yourself? before you take full responsibility for having done it. You've already heard a gazillion times, if you truly are on the non-dual path, forgiveness is key. What's it going to take for you to forgive yourself for having done this unto yourself? Can't blame the world and think you're going to awaken to self. You've got to realize, I've done this unto myself. In truth, I've not done anything. But while you're being triggered, don't go into that spiritual high pony, the unicorn. Oh, this isn't really real. If something's triggering you, if the world's still triggering you, don't speak and spew forth non-duality as if you're a saint. Face your shadows. Stop trying to be holier than thou. Become aware that if you are a fearful, avoidant person, you need to self-soothe. You need to self-heal. Self-love's bullshit. There's no such thing as self-love. There's the recognition of the love you are. Self-recognition, self-awareness. Self-love is the love I am, recognizes the love we all are as one indivisible self. And as one indivisible self, how can I be truly helpful? How can I serve all of myself, and unite all of ourselves, unity awareness, the atonement, at one, bring ourselves back into awaken from the dream. I am, God is, full stop. Share the light you are. Be patient. Patient in love. Patience is love in action. Be patient with your fractured self and yourself while staying true and authentic to self. Authenticity. Don't try and be spiritual. There's no such thing as spiritual. It's all bullshit. Be authentic. You want to be the rogue? Be the rogue. You want to be all holier than thou? Be holier than thou because it's natural. If you were born a librarian, you're soft and gentle. If you're born a rogue cowboy, you're a rogue cowboy. You may learn techniques to eat with a knife and fork and speak in gentle tones in a restaurant, but the rogue is still there. What are you trying to show? Who are you trying to impress? You're trying to impress the rest of your fractured selves? What for? It's all you. Give people time to heal at their own pace. Don't force them. Can't force anyone. And don't expect the world to change overnight. It's changed already. It's over. All you here to do is to forgive yourself for having dreamt nothing. Nonsense. A universal disaster of biblical distortion. Forgive self and you heal your dream. Realize that all our problems comes from separation anxiety because we subconsciously believe we can be separated from our source, that we can be body minds, that this world is real, bodies are real. And so we can substitute our emptiness with people, places, things, and events. Special person, that other one that's going to take away all of us. Bridget Jones, and you complete me. Absolute nonsense. Okay. We watch these romance stories and say, oh, why can't I just find a good man? If you go onto any social platform and where are all the good men gone? Then you're saying to all the good men, watch out for this one, because this one doesn't believe you're good. And she's actually, what about all the good men around you that you weren't necessarily in a romantic relationship with? So are there no good men? All women are bitches. All women cheat. Really? You know every single woman in the planet? Or have you cheated yourself? Have you been dishonest with yourself? And because you cheat yourself and you're dishonest with yourself, you attract the cheaters and those who are dishonest with you. Why? Reflections of yourself in the dream of separation. What you really want to do is see the face of Christ everywhere. Face of Christ, you recognize spirit or you see the body. And what is it to recognize Christ everywhere? It's to know thyself as the Holy Son of God, as the extension of God, as the Christ, the Son of God. Be that knowingly, whilst you won't know it, you won't see it. Remember that when you miss other people, you're missing significant moments. You're wanting the memories you try to make. Why are you hanging trying to make memories? When you die in this body mind, you think a memory remains in your free spirit. There's no memory. So you're hanging on to memories for. Remember, when you're missing other people, you're often missing the significant moments, not the hurt that you experienced. Of course, if you're missing someone who's passed away, that's completely understandable. Of course you can. But once you understand that what you're missing is a part of yourself, you bring them into yourself in your awareness, and the love is still there. Yes, okay, you can't have the physical commitment with a ghost, no matter what music plays in the background or what clay plot is busy being molded. Those are for the movies. But the reality is, when you are full of awareness, you are fulfilled in love, and you won't miss anyone, You'll have memories without the pain, because missing is always pain. When you think fondly of an experience you've had, you're not missing. You are back in the present moment awareness because everything is happening simultaneously in the dream of separation. If you do miss someone that has abused you, has rejected you, has kept pushing away, every time you try and get close, they run away. Every time you try and get a commitment, they run away. Every time you talk about something, try and formalize the relationship, they run away. Then it's time to cut it, walk away, and then you apply the no contact rule. Don't keep going back to a relationship to be hurt over and over again, especially if you've given it a couple of years. If you've given it a couple of years and they keep avoiding you, and you're always the second best option, and they're going to wait for someone to organize a party in order to decide whether they're going to hang out with you or not, and they've always got a reason why someone else needs them more than you do, break that thing and go into radio silence, no contact, so that you can return to self and heal as through alignment. Allow the Holy Spirit, your awareness, to heal you. Learn to trust the Holy Self within. You are never alone. You are all one. Everything you see is you. The entire universe are fractures of your Holy Son of God dreaming mind. Trust that you intuitively plugged in and aligned with divine wisdom. And thus you can make good decisions. You don't need the guru to tell you. You don't need the teacher to tell you. Abide in silent stillness. Ask and you will be shown. Okay. And you can make good decisions. And you can have someone, if you truly become secure in your attachments, you'll find that secure attachments. And you'll have and play out the rest of your life in this delusion in a most beautiful, holy companionship, which you cannot imagine what that's like. Just imagine a place and a space where you feel secure, respected, loved, appreciated, validated, and it's two ways. Learn to identify and heal the stress state, the fight or flight state. Be aware, I want to run away, and then bring it into the light of awareness so it can be healed. People say, give it to the Holy Spirit. You can't give anything to the Holy Spirit. It's not true. You're asking the Holy Spirit to interpret it, that you want to see through the Holy Spirit's eyes. What's the Holy Spirit? It's your true self. It's the closest it is the reality to what you are, absolute reality. I want to see through my awakened eyes, through my true holy self, Holy Spirit self. So learn to identify. I'm about to run, I'm about to fight. The impulses of your fractured self that feels it could be hurt, could be abandoned, could be punished. And practice. Find the techniques, whether it be the meditation, the breath work. Learn to quieten the mind so that the egoic chatter doesn't come. Do the direct path, self-inquiry. To whom does this appear? What am I? Who asks these questions? Find that and then abide in it. Get the just observe, watch the emotions come up, watch the stories come up. Don't denounce, don't reject, don't push away. Sit with it. Immerse yourself in it. Watch those impulses, those latent tendencies, those vasanas rising. Sit with it. Sit with it and see, this can't harm me. Forgive that. And then it it is just naturally transcended through forgiveness. And most importantly, if you can give gratitude for the understanding, awakening to self is inevitable. Don't avoid. Don't deny. Don't try and control everyone and every outcome. The dream is over. All you can do is choose how to respond to what you see and what you experience. Sit quietly with your anxiety. Face it head on. Face it head on with forgiveness. Forgiveness is the light of awareness. Become consciously present. Rest as awareness. Sit with whatever anxiety. I want to run. I want to attach. I want to phone. I want to control. Sit with it. Abide knowingly, consciously in your truest essential nature, the silent stillness, the peaceful, joyous flow. This is what's called inflorescence. Inflow essence. Your essence is in flow. Align the Lord God of your being. The Holy Spirit flows through you. The memory of God returns into present moment awareness. Memory no more. It's now the awareness, the presence of our all-pervading Holy Spirit. And no, God's got you. The whole reason you've projected into form is to remember self, to remember what you are through the experience of what you're not. Always seek to understand, then be understood without judgment, and stop taking it personally. You'll see someone writes a post, they're explaining a story. Immediately, someone takes it personally. Oh, they're addressing me. People do that to my posts all the time. I just post something, and immediately someone's defensive. Oh, did you address me? I wasn't thinking about you when you wrote this. There are no fractured cells in my head. And very often, when you're reading a post that I've written, I wrote it 3, 4 months ago. It's on a sequence, it's getting posted automatically. Seek first to understand, then be understood. The golden rule of selling. Imagine walking up to someone and saying, I really want you to buy my house. Why? I want the commission, I want the paycheck. As opposed to, what is it that you need? Would you like a house? Do you need a home? Does this home suit you? How would this make you feel? How can I enhance the experience for you? Seek first to understand. How can I serve? As opposed to how I want to be served. And very importantly, if you're ever super depressed or suicidal, get professional help. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't go to spiritual gurus when you need psychology. And don't go to spiritual so-called teachers because they've read A Course in Miracles. That's just bringing you to the understanding of the non-duality. If you need therapy, find a professional, please. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with the therapist. So it's like saying if I'm seeking professional help, there's something wrong with the therapist because the therapists need to see wounded, fractured selves. Yeah, some therapists are cooked. But there's many a beautiful therapist out there that can really bring you into the light of awareness, whether they understand non-duality or not. Find the right one, be selective, take your time, but call for help. Finally, it's vital that you know that all healed relationships have the following to look forward to. And this is my direct experience. A state where both partners have this total unity awareness, interdependence of all of it, recognizing the whole universe is one organism, the content of one dreaming mind. It's all the dreamer's dreaming mind, the contents of your dreaming mind. And so a place of peaceful unity awareness where everything and everyone and self and partner are valued and the values are maintained and nourished, and it's like a beautiful garden where both partners are watering this garden and tending to it. Both partners are allowed and encouraged to be transparent and authentic as they play out their gender roles, whatever genders they seem to be. It could be male-female relationship, female-female relationship, male-male relationship, and the myriads of things that are happening to the woke kids today, and they have sex changes. And who the hell do you think you are to judge them? Just allow people to be as they are. Yes, we want to talk about the good old days as if the good old days were perfect. There's fuck all perfect about history. There's fuck all perfect about the good old days. Told you this is PG-21. Imagine living in South Africa 30 years ago and you're saying the good old days. Then you must have been a supreme white racist because it wasn't good for the African people. Okay, so don't ever fucking talk about the good old days. The reason people love the good old days is because they cannot face their reality. And what's their reality? Their unreality, their unforgiven selves, and they're resisting change. Change is the constant in the dream. What has never changed is your true, authentic, holy Son of God self. Return to that. And what happens in the world, what progresses and doesn't progress. You think it's any worse now than it was 56 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, 300 years ago? Women only got the vote 60 or 70 years ago. Slavery was still around 120 years ago. There was nothing good about the good old days. It was only good for a select few. And if you speak that way, you're delusioned, and you were one of the ones that got away with fucking murder while other people suffered so that you could have the lifestyle you wanted. So that bullshit doesn't fly with me. I'm not interested. Come and live in my country back in the 70s when you were my color skin. And I tell you, it was nothing good about the good old days. So don't talk that shit. Doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it. Then you're an old geriatric wishing for the past, trapped in the past, unaware. You're a fractured body mind. If you had your ass kicked, abso-fucking-lutely, I've just torn you a new arsehole. Get used to it. That's the fact of facing reality. Look upon the reality. Stop resisting it. Stop seeing yourself as a victim. Other people are to blame. Your parents were a fuck up. Everybody else is a fuck up. Hey, you have done this unto yourself, Holy Son of God. You chose, you wanted to be special. You wanted to show God you could create better than Him. You've created this entire universal nightmare. Every fucking path, every fucking religion that exists, you've made this up. And then you think you're special, you're spiritual, you're more advanced. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know what? If you took the whole of mankind and gave them one religion, one God, we'd be finding a reason to beat each other up anyway. It would be nation against nation, thinking that this one is better than that one. Christianity can't unite. Over 40,000 variations of Christianity in this world. Which one's right? No one can even go to a church for more than a month or two or a year and they start finding fault. The churches are the most judgmental places there are. They think, if you're this sex, you can't attend it. If you're that way, if you're a single mother, we'll treat you, you know, differently. The whole fucking thing's a joke. There's not a single religion in this world that makes any fucking sense. The only way is no religion. Turn inwards to the Christ within your heart and talk about Jesus. The blood of Jesus saves. Don't do that bullshit. Act like Jesus. Be the Christ, walking, talking. As he said, I and my Father are one, and you and I are brothers and sisters. And what I can do, you shall do. If you only have the faith of a mustard seed, seek and you will find. Seek to understand and you'll be understood. Understand that what do we want in this relationship with each other is interdependent containment. Contained in safety, protected, loved, cherished, valued. Where you can sometimes be codependent if you need to, because I'm not very good at this. I need your help. Or I can be independent if I need to. I can be okay together alone. Or I can be fully interdependent and be fully reliant and share. This is what I'm good at. This is what I contribute. This is what you're good at. This is what I contribute. Don't try and turn men into girls. Don't try and turn girls into men. There's a difference. Why women are from Mars and men are from women are from Venus and men are from Mars, or whatever the hell it is. Hey, the polarity was split when we fell asleep and dreamt and separated ourselves. Story of Adam and Eve, and told ourselves all these bullshit stories. Yin and yang. And when you see what's happening to kids today, they're trying to change sex is because they're so trapped in that yin yang that they do not understand. Nothing to do with the physicality. They're lost in translation. And they're trying to bring the masculine and the feminine together. It cannot be done in form. It is done in awareness, and not in physicality. But do not attack. Everybody's trying the best they can with what they know. And if they were you, they would understand the world the way you do. And if you lived the way they did, you'd be them. It's easy to turn on the sociopaths and the psychopaths. Psychopaths are formed before they even come into physicality. And the minute they come into physicality, they make sure that there's certain conditions that happens to the brain that switches off some parts of the brain. And so physiologically, the psychopath is formed. Sociopaths are learned behavior. You think a sociopath, as this individual, wanted it? No, it came through as a thought in form from your dreaming mind. So the minute you're projecting and saying everybody else is to blame, look at that sociopath, look at this mad person. Hey, you've done this, all of this. Take full responsibility. You were once upon a time that which projected Hitler. You were once upon a time that which projected Jesus. Both Jesus and Hitler live in the same dreaming mind. Conscious, subconscious, unconscious. Eventually, full awareness. Be you that brings the awareness into the dream. Don't add to it with your miserable complaining and your holier than thou spirituality or religious bullshit. Don't do that. You don't know any better. Learn from everything. Here's an opportunity to see things a different way. You may not agree with me, and by disagreeing with me in your own way, you reinforce your understanding. If you agree with me, it adds to yours. There's no benefit here. I'm sharing what I understand. 30 years of my research. Just remember, becoming spiritual or religious or awakening to self doesn't mean that we lose all attachment and detach from the world, and now we're going to hide in the cave and be all alone. Of course not. No need for that. The path of a master or self-mastery isn't a lonely one. There's no l in it. It's an only one. We learn about healthy interdependence by offering of ourselves without regrets, without fears, without fearing being abandoned, rejected, or being controlled. We are one indivisible shared self. The whole universe is one organism. Everything in this universe is part of oneness. Each fractured part of ourself contributes to the whole. If you have a 500-piece puzzle and one piece is missing, you cannot complete the puzzle. Therefore, every other piece in that 500-piece puzzle, 499 pieces help you complete yourself, and you help the 499 complete themselves. Therefore, it's vital that we learn to become interdependent with our partners, with our mighty companions, and the rest of the world too. It's okay to be dependent on others. How can you not be? Just do not be overly attached and try and control. Interdependence means that we invite and invest in safety and security, self and others. Plus, we motivate and we support. We want to spend quality time with our fractured selves in order that we come into awareness. We want to see the mirror. So not so that we clean in the mirror, so that we're going within. You clean within, the mirror image is cleared. Quality time, connection, communication, communion, physical touch and intimacy. We're not meant to be lonely and alone. Statistics shows that over 60% of men in the world haven't been hugged in the last year. 60% of young boys and men haven't had a hug. Don't know how to, don't know how to express, don't know how to be hugged. Okay. Realize that we have a complete need and desire for reliance and assistance with one another, with compassion, with emotional support, with understanding. Give to each other, we must give each other attention and warmth and really share of ourselves, especially those of you that are awakening to self and understanding Christ within. Share the Christ with the rest of yourselves. Companionship is vital, but companionship can only work with like-mindedness. If you understand your attachment drama and now you want to control someone and attach and you're overly anxious, you can push them away. Pull them in, share yourself. Don't blame. Remember, the masculine wants to fix the problem. The feminine wants to fix the person. Be careful of blaming. Be careful of trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed. Bring it into the light of awareness so that together you can address it and heal. Companionship is vital. Like-mindedness is vital. Learn to validate and respect everyone, especially your companion, your partner, in their actions, in their words, words of affirmation. Share of yourself completely, totally, without holding back. But don't now become creepy and stalk people, okay? No one's here to be alone. We are here to recognize our shared all oneness. It's why birds of a feather flock together in groups, in family. It's why we get into tribes, because we're meant to bring into like-mindedness. Eventually, we are one indivisible tribe under the awareness of Christ. Share understanding. We share wisdom, which forms our values. These become the unspoken laws. I can trust my community. I can let my daughters go out at night without the fear they're going to be raped and attacked because other men in my community have taken the same value to protect my daughter. Not all men are toxic. Not all women are bitches. Let's get rid of that. Let's stop finding blame. Let's start finding reasons to unite and bring the masculine and the feminine together. Without unity, without our needs being fulfilled, we just add to the perpetual void, and we avoid the void, and the void is not devoid. The void is full. The void is fulfillment. So we starve on the inside because we stop the flow of love. And what is love? Essence, energy. It's the life force. Just because your previous relationships were codependent and they led to hurt and harm, don't imagine they're all going to be like it. Just because your previous partners cheated, if you understand why they cheated, because you were cheating yourself, you won't attract the next cheat. You'll attract a healed person to your life. So just because your previous codependency led to hurt and harm, don't adopt the detachment point of view. Rather, let your interdependence become a source of inspiration for unity awareness. Remember, it's about inspired enthusiasm where you pour yourself lovingly into all of this, where you love your fractured selves with the passion of the Christ, which is your true essential nature. It's what Jesus tried to teach us. Love one another as I have loved you. Becoming spiritual doesn't mean that you isolate yourself into exclusive independence, hide in the cave. I don't need anyone. Detach, detach, detach. Next time you hear someone attach, give them a Jesus slap. No detachment. Non-attachment to outcomes. Interdependent. Realize the interconnectedness between all of us. As one indivisible self. One. One part of us asleep, but still one. The true part of ourselves that's true, the awake side, the Christ side, Christ awake mind. So, but as one indivisible self, we are fully dependent upon our collective selves, fully unified. Once we reach unification, God takes the final step. Not you as the individual, God takes the final step. When our collective mind awakens to itself. So you think you're going to get away from this dream? and you're just going to hang around in the ether with the Christ mind. Hey, all of it's you. We all awaken or none of us do. God takes the final step when the sun wakes up, not when fractures of his sun wake up. To deny our dependency and connection to all our fractured selves, it's not a higher state of awareness or higher state of being. Oh, look at me, I don't need any. We're just denying the truth disguised as some sort of spiritual advancement, spiritual mask. And this is just falling straight into the egoic trap of separation. You are completely dependent on all of yourselves. You're completely interdependent. But there's a dependency on it too. Just think of it. If the whole world goes to war, you're screwed. If the whole world goes to peace, you're at peace too. So don't get all spiritual. I don't need anyone. I'm fine on my own. Then my doggy and my catty will help. Hey, get your ass out of the house. Go share. Go share your joyous self. You're teaching anyway. You're teaching all the time. But don't need to teach. You don't need to convert. Just go and add joy. Okay. You go pure separation. Oh, I'm okay. I'm independent. I don't need anyone. All men are masculine and toxic, and therefore, if I allow a man to help me out and take care of me and provide for me, oh my God, I'm a nobody. Hey, allow men to be men, allow women to be women, allow the femininity to flow through them, allow the masculinity to flow through it. It's all beautiful when it joins. It's the union. That's why we're here, to remember self, to unite self through the Holy Communion. Once we have healed, those attachment dramas, they just empty, they become empty shells. And the true self aligns and the mighty companionship is formed. And then we become secure attachment relationships. And secure attachment relationships attract into each other's lives mighty companionship. What's the mighty companionship? Where two people come together into the ark of the covenant. And what's the ark of the covenant? Seek ye first the kingdom, and all else shall be given. Why all else? Because we are all else. We have all else. Two by two, yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine unite. It could be a female-female relationship, male-male relationship, male-female relationship. If you're judging it and you think God is judging gay people, you're fucked up and lost in bullshit religion. There is no fucking people. It's just projections of yourself. It's all you. If you're judging anything outside yourself, you're judging yourself. I don't give a fuck what psychotherapist says what. You're offended, tough shit. You're offended because you're judging. If I've offended you, it's because you're constant judgment and you think you're mightier than thou, holier than thou, and you've got some unicorn fucking pony up there, and bad language is bad because some school teacher told you so, your parents were librarians or English school teachers. Gives a fuck. Come back to self. Come back to realizing one indivisible self. If you found me and I'm offending you, it's because you have to practice forgiveness. Something inside you has attracted me. It's why you're still watching an hour into the talk, because you're glued to the screen. Something in you is awakening. And you immediately want to start finding fault. And that's why I'm triggering you on purpose. Rise above the battlefield, Holy Son of God. Hey, God's got you. Next week, we're going to talk about life suggestions for moving towards healed relationships, mighty companionships. Next week, I'm going to share something with you which I haven't made public. I've shared it once or twice to the course community, but it's not out there. You're not going to find it anywhere on YouTube or any video or any book, because this was vision that was shown me in terms of the unification, the pyramid of mighty companionships. You will find it in my latest book, a school called the Universe. Thank you for joining me. I hope this has brought understanding. This isn't going to heal you. This is going to bring understanding. Now go face your shadows. Go do the research. Go find it on YouTube. There's some great teachers on YouTube. Dr. Orion Teraban, he's going to kick your ass. He's going to shake the feminine into Orion Teraban. Look him up. Dr. Orion Teraban, phenomenal teacher. Really deep understanding of the masculine feminine dynamic. There's some great teachers out there. Go look them up. If you truly want to heal, you'll find the answers. The answers are within yourself. And once you've faced your shadows, align with the Lord God of your being, God takes this final step and brings us all as one collective whole back into the Christ awake mind we all are, have been, and forever will be. Be blessed. Thank you for joining me.